Look, I have been a xenobiological research coordinator for the Galactic Enforcement Coalition for 73 cycles now. 73 cycles. I have dissected, analyzed, and catalogued over 400 species across 12 quadrants. I thought I had seen everything the universe could throw at me. Then they brought in Private Marcus Webb. The specimen arrived on a Tuesday morning, which is already suspicious because nothing good ever happens on a Tuesday. The transport shuttle landed in Bay 7 of our research facility on Station Kepler 9, and I remember thinking, oh great, another bipedal mammal. How original. Commander Vrath, my immediate superior, a Cultorian with too many eyes and not enough humor, summoned me to the observation deck. Kavik, he said, his voice resonating through 3 vocal chambers simultaneously, which always made him sound like he was announcing the end of the world, we have acquired a human soldier. The High Council wants a full biological assessment. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. Right. As if anything involving humans could ever be standard. I floated down to the holding area, my tentacles rippling with what I can only describe as profound boredom mixed with mild irritation. The human was sitting on the examination platform, hands clasped together, looking around the sterile white room with what appeared to be casual interest. Not fear. Not anger. Just curiosity. That should have been my first warning sign. Subject designation. I asked, checking my datapad. Private Marcus Webb, sir, the human replied. He had brown hair, average height for his species at approximately 1.8 meters, and eyes that were an unusual shade of green. Though I gotta say, this is way nicer than my last holding cell. You guys have excellent lighting. I blinked all 4 of my eyes in sequence. You are comfortable? Well, the bench is a bit hard, but I have slept on worse. He stretched his arms above his head, and I heard several joints pop in rapid succession. So what's the deal here? Physical exam? Psychological evaluation? Please tell me it is not another one of those invasive probe situations, because I have had 3 of those this month and honestly, my patience is wearing thin. Sarcasm. The human was employing sarcasm while being held captive in an alien research facility. Fascinating and deeply concerning. We will begin with basic physical assessments, I explained, gesturing to my assistant, a nervous Plixian named Torv who had only been with the facility for 2 cycles. Please remove your upper garments. Webb complied without hesitation, pulling off what humans call a shirt. His torso was covered in scars. Not the neat surgical kind that you get from medical procedures. No, these were the jagged, rough-edged reminders of violence. Burns. Lacerations. What appeared to be an old puncture wound near his left shoulder. Torv made a small squeaking sound and dropped his scanner. Yeah, sorry about the decor, Webb said, glancing down at his own chest. Occupational hazard. The big one on my ribs. That was from a Krix warrior on Outpost 17. Turns out their claws are sharper than they look. Who knew, right? You fought a Krix warrior in close combat? I asked, my tentacles tightening involuntarily. The Krix were 4-meter-tall predators with exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire. And you survived? Well, obviously. Webb grinned, showing his flat omnivore teeth. Though to be fair, he did not. I instructed Torv to begin the scanning sequence while I reviewed the preliminary data. Human biology was supposedly unremarkable compared to most spacefaring species. They had no natural armor, no venomous capabilities, no telepathic defenses. They were slow by galactic standards, weak by most metrics, and their sensory range was laughably limited. So why did the High Council classify this particular specimen as a level 9 threat? Heart rate is elevated, Torv announced, his voice trembling. Approximately 90 beats per standard minute. That is normal for me, Webb interjected. Resting rate is usually around 60, but you know, being in an alien research facility gets the adrenaline going. Natural response. Adrenaline. That cursed chemical that kept appearing in every report about human combat performance. The substance that apparently turned their fragile bodies into temporary weapons. Let us test your physical capabilities, I said, leading him to the exercise area. Please lift this weight module. I gestured to a cylindrical mass calibrated to approximately 50 kilograms. Standard testing protocol for bipedal species. Webb walked over, assessed the weight with a glance, and lifted it with one hand. This is like, what, 110 pounds? You want me to do reps or just hold it? How? Torv's antennae were quivering. How are you lifting that with such ease? Gravity training, Webb explained, switching the weight to his other hand like it was a piece of fruit. Earth has stronger gravity than most habitable worlds. We grow up hauling our own body weight around in 1.0 g, makes us naturally stronger than species that evolved on lighter planets. He paused. No offense. I increased the weight to 100 kilograms. Webb adjusted his stance and lifted it with both hands, grunting slightly but maintaining control. 150 kilograms. He managed it, though his muscles strained visibly. At 200 kilograms, he finally set the weight down, breathing harder but not collapsing. Okay, that one is getting up there, he admitted, rolling his shoulders. But give me a crisis situation and some adrenaline, and I bet I could push it further. There it was again. Adrenaline. The emergency response chemical that seemed to be the key to human combat effectiveness. Tell me about adrenaline, I demanded, making notes on my datapad. How does it function? Webb laughed, an odd barking sound that humans made when amused. Oh man, where do I start? So basically, when we are scared or angry or in danger, our bodies dump this hormone into our bloodstream. Heart rate spikes, pain tolerance shoots up, strength increases, reflexes get faster. We can literally perform beyond our normal physical limits for short periods. It is like a biological overdrive system. That sounds incredibly dangerous, Torv whispered. Your body cannibalizes itself for temporary power. Yeah, pretty much. Webb grinned again, seemingly unbothered by the horror in Torv's voice. There is a crash afterward. Exhaustion, shakes, sometimes nausea. But in the moment, we can do things that should not be possible. Lift cars off trapped people. Fight off multiple attackers. Run on broken legs. The survival instinct is a hell of a drug. I felt a cold sensation ripple through my central nervous system. This was not just adaptation. This was biological warfare programming written into their genetic code. Let us move to cognitive testing, I announced, trying to maintain professional detachment. We led Webb to a problem-solving chamber where holographic puzzles appeared in sequence, each one more complex than the last. Standard IQ assessment for strategic thinking and pattern recognition. He solved the first 5 in under 3 minutes. This is actually kind of fun, he said, manipulating the holographic shapes with practiced ease. Reminds me of this game we had back on Earth. Tetris, I think. Same basic concept. Spatial reasoning, quick decisions, pattern matching. The puzzles grew harder. Multidimensional mathematics. Abstract logical sequences. Probability calculations that required processing 17 variables simultaneously. Webb slowed down but did not stop. His brow furrowed in concentration, and I noticed sweat forming on his forehead, but he kept working through each problem methodically. Your species has natural aptitude for strategic planning, I observed, watching him solve a puzzle that had stumped several Kaltorian military analysts. We are persistence hunters, Webb replied, not looking away from the hologram. Our ancestors used to chase prey for days across open plains. Not fast enough to catch them in a sprint, so we just followed. And followed. And followed. Until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We are built for endurance and stubbornness. It is in our DNA. Persistence hunters. The phrase echoed in my mind with uncomfortable implications. Humans did not just fight. They pursued. They did not give up. Ever. Break time, I announced, feeling the need to step away and process the data. Torv, escort the subject to the rest area. Provide nutrition and hydration. While Webb ate what passed for human-compatible food in our facility, I reviewed the morning's results in my private office. Commander Vrath appeared on my view screen, his multiple eyes blinking in systematic sequence. Initial assessment, he asked. Disturbing, I replied honestly. Commander, this species should not be as effective as the reports suggest. Their base physical capabilities are moderate at best. Their sensory range is limited. They have no natural weapons or defenses. And yet they have won 17 major engagements against superior forces, Vrath finished. Yes, Kavik. That is why we need to understand them. What makes them dangerous? I glanced at my data. It is not any single factor. It is the combination. The adrenaline response system gives them temporary physical enhancement. Their endurance is exceptional. But more than that, Commander, they have something I cannot quantify in standard metrics. Which is? Spite, I said flatly. They fight because they refuse to lose. Not out of honor or duty or programming. They just will not accept defeat. Vratha's eyes all focused on me simultaneously, which was his equivalent of raising an eyebrow. Spite. You are telling me the Galactic Enforcement Coalition is concerned about a species motivated by stubborn refusal to quit? Have you ever tried to discourage a human, Commander? I asked. Because I am beginning to understand why they are classified as level 9. It is not that they are the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. It is that they do not care about those disadvantages. They fight anyway. A long pause stretched between us. Continue your assessment, Vrath finally said. The Council needs comprehensive data before the Tribunal next week. If we are going to integrate humans into coalition forces or classify them as a restricted species, we need to know exactly what we are dealing with. The view screen went dark, and I sat in silence, considering the implications of what I had observed. In all my cycles of research, I had never encountered a species quite like this. They were not the apex predators of the galaxy. They were something potentially more dangerous. They were survivors who had learned to weaponize their own fragility. I returned to the testing area to find Webb doing one-armed push-ups on the floor. Not because anyone had asked him to. Just because he was bored, and apparently that was how humans pass time. Ready for round 2? He asked, springing to his feet with alarming speed. Because I gotta tell you, Doc, I am just getting warmed up. That was what I was afraid of. The afternoon testing session began with what I called the stress response evaluation. Basically, we were going to try to scare Private Marcus Webb and measure what happened to his body when we did. I know. My job has questionable ethics sometimes. We are going to simulate a combat scenario, I explained, leading him into Chamber 4, which was designed to look like a hostile environment. Rocky terrain, low visibility, random obstacles. You will face holographic opponents. They cannot hurt you, but your body will not know that. We want to measure your physiological response to perceived danger. Webb stretched his neck, which made several cracking sounds that I found deeply unsettling. So basically, you want to activate my fight or flight response and see what happens. Precisely. Cool. Let me know when to start. He rolled his shoulders and took a position in the center of the chamber, his entire demeanor shifting from casual to focused in the span of maybe 2 seconds. Torv initiated the program from the control booth. 3 holographic Krix warriors materialized around Webb, their mandibles clicking, their 4 arms raised with simulated plasma weapons. I expected hesitation. Maybe fear. A normal biological response to being outnumbered by larger, better-armed opponents. Instead, Webb smiled. Then he moved. I have studied combat footage from hundreds of species. I understand tactical movement, strategic positioning, efficient violence. But watching a human fight in real time was something entirely different. It was not elegant like Valerian blade dancing. It was not overwhelming like Crick's brute force. It was chaos given purpose. Webb dropped low, rolling under the first attacker's swing, coming up behind it and delivering a strike to where the knee joint would be on a real Crick's. The hologram flickered from the impact sensor. He used the momentum to pivot toward the second opponent, grabbing its arm simulation and using its own mass to throw it into the third attacker. Heart rate at 140, Torv announced, his voice cracking. Adrenaline levels spiking. Pain suppression active. He is not even breathing hard. The simulation increased difficulty. 5 opponents. Then 7. Then 10. Webb kept fighting. Not winning, exactly, because the holograms kept respawning, but not losing either. He adapted to each new threat within seconds, learning patterns, exploiting weaknesses, turning their numbers against them. When one hologram landed a hit that would have broken ribs on most species, sensors showed his body barely registered it. The adrenaline was suppressing pain signals, keeping him functional despite injury. Enough, I called out, terminating the program. Subject Webb, stand down. He straightened slowly, breathing heavily now, sweat pouring down his face. His pupils were dilated, hands still clenched into fists. It took him nearly 15 seconds to fully come back to normal awareness. Sorry, he said, shaking his head like he was clearing water from his ears. Takes a minute to power down. How did I do? You survived a scenario designed to be unwinnable, I replied, checking the data streaming across my pad. Your body sustained 3 impacts that should have incapacitated you. You continued fighting. Why? Webb wiped his face with his shirt. Because stopping means dying. At least, that is what my brain thinks during combat. Rational thought kind of takes a back seat when the adrenaline kicks in. You just react. Training plus instinct plus chemicals equals one very stubborn soldier who refuses to quit. There was that word again. Refuses. Not unable to quit. Not programmed to continue. Refuses to quit. A conscious choice made at the biological level. Let us discuss your psychological profile, I said, guiding him to a quieter room with what humans might consider comfortable seating. You have been in captivity for 6 days now. Away from your unit, your planet, your species. How are you coping? Webb shrugged, a gesture that seemed to be the human default for everything. I mean, it is not ideal, but I have been in worse situations. There was this time on Proxima Station where I got locked in a cargo hold for 2 weeks with nothing but protein bars and recycled air. At least here you guys feed me real food and the air does not smell like engine coolant. You are not frightened? Torv asked from the doorway, his curiosity apparently overcoming his nervousness. Not worried about what we might do to you? Oh, I am definitely worried, Webb admitted. But being scared does not change my situation, does it? Either you are going to hurt me or you are not. Panicking about it just makes everything worse. So I figure I might as well stay calm, cooperate with the tests, and wait for an opportunity. My tentacles stiffened. An opportunity for what? Webb's green eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something dangerous behind the casual demeanor. To escape, obviously. I am a prisoner of war, Doc. I have been trained to resist, evade, and return to friendly forces at the first available chance. That is literally in my job description. The casual way he admitted to planning an escape attempt was almost more unsettling than the threat itself. No posturing. No dramatic declaration. Just a simple statement of fact delivered with the same tone someone might use to discuss lunch plans. You do realize, I said slowly, that this station has 472 security personnel, weapon systems that could vaporize a ship, and you are one unarmed human in the middle of deep space. Yeah. Webb leaned back in his chair. But I have been in tight spots before. You would be surprised what one motivated human can accomplish with limited resources and enough stubbornness. We are really good at making bad situations work in our favor. Commander Vrath chose that moment to enter the room, his heavy footsteps announcing his presence before his bulk filled the doorway. "Private Webb," he said, his tri-vocal voice resonating through the chamber. "Your reputation precedes you. The incident at Outpost 17. The defense of Colony 8. The infiltration of the Syndicate vessel. Quite the service record for someone so young." Webb stood, which I noted was a sign of respect in human military culture. "Commander. I would say it is an honor, but given that I am a prisoner, that seems like it would be lying." Vratha's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been amusement. "Honest. I appreciate that. Tell me, Private, what do you think of the Galactic Enforcement Coalition?" "Honestly?" Webb considered the question. "I think you are terrified of us. That is why I am here, right? You want to figure out what makes humans dangerous so you can either weaponize us or eliminate the threat. Standard procedure when a new species starts making waves in galactic politics." The bluntness of the statement hung in the air like a physical weight. "You are not entirely wrong," Vrath admitted. "Your species has been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. In that time, you have established colonies on 47 worlds, fought wars with 6 established powers, and won most of them despite being outnumbered and outgunned. The Council finds this concerning. Because we do not play by the rules," Webb said. "We do not have fancy energy shields or psychic powers or natural armor. So we improvise. We adapt. We use whatever works, whether it is honorable or not. And yeah, I can see how that would be scary to species who are used to traditional warfare. I found myself fascinated despite my professional detachment. What would you do if we released you right now?" Webb looked surprised by the question. "Depends. Am I being released as part of a prisoner exchange? Or are you just opening the door and saying good luck?" "Hypothetically, the latter. Then I would steal a shuttle, navigate to the nearest human outpost, and report everything I learned about this facility to my superiors," he said without hesitation. "Information is ammunition. You just spent a whole day showing me your research capabilities, your security systems, your personnel numbers. That is valuable intel." Torv made a strangled sound. "You were gathering intelligence this entire time?" "I am always gathering intelligence," Webb replied matter-of-factly. "It is habit at this point. I know there are 73 cameras in this facility, 22 blind spots in the corridor systems, and the guard shifts change every 8 hours with a 15-minute overlap. I know your plasma weapons have a 3-second charge time and the doors have a mechanical override behind those panels on the left side. I even know that Torv here is afraid of me based on his body language and pheromone output." Torv actually whimpered. Vrath, to his credit, seemed more impressed than alarmed. "You analyzed this facility while being tested?" "Multitasking is another human skill," Webb said. "Our brains are wired to process multiple information streams simultaneously. Survival trait from when we had to watch for predators while hunting for food while caring for offspring. We never really stop observing our environment." I reviewed my notes, feeling like I was finally starting to understand the central problem. "You are not superior to us in any single category," I said. "But you excel at combining multiple moderate abilities into something greater than the sum of its parts." "Exactly." Webb pointed at me enthusiastically. "You get it. We are not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. But we are good enough at everything to be dangerous. Plus we have that whole refusing to quit thing going for us. Persistence plus adaptability plus spite equals a species that punches way above its weight class." Commander Vrath settled his bulk onto a reinforced chair. "The Council is divided on how to handle humanity. Some want to recruit you for coalition forces. Others want to contain you on your home worlds. A few extremists want to eliminate the threat entirely before you become too powerful. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. That would be a mistake, Webb said quietly, and for the first time I heard steel beneath the casual tone. You think I am dangerous? I am one soldier. One human out of billions. If you attack Earth, you will not be fighting an army. You will be fighting an entire species that absolutely refuses to be conquered. We will fight with ships and weapons and then rocks and sticks if we have to. We will hide in our cities and our tunnels and bleed you for every inch of ground. We survived ice ages and plagues and global wars. We are really good at surviving. The silence stretched. That sounds like a threat, Wrath observed. No sir. Webb shook his head. That is a promise. Not from me specifically, but from human history. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We adapt and we endure and we come back stronger. It is what we do. It is all we know how to do. I looked at my data, at the physiological readings, at the combat performance, at everything we had measured. And I realized the terrible truth that the Council would not want to hear. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong or fast or smart. They were dangerous because they were resilient in ways that defied conventional military analysis. You could not break them because they were already comfortable with being broken. You could not scare them because they were already afraid and fighting anyway. You could not discourage them because they treated impossible odds as a personal challenge. My report will be classified, I said finally. Level 9 threat assessment confirmed. But I will recommend integration rather than containment. Webb raised an eyebrow. Why? Because, I replied, my tentacles curling with resignation, I would rather have humans fighting alongside us than against us. The mathematics of that calculation are very simple. Vratha's eyes all focused on me simultaneously. You believe they would make effective allies? I believe they would make terrifying enemies, I corrected. Which means yes, they would make exceptional allies. Provided we can trust them. Webb grinned that unsettling human grin. Trust is earned, Doc. But I will tell you this much. Humans are loyal to those who treat us with respect. Cross us, and we will fight you forever. Stand with us, and we will die defending you. It is kind of our thing. The testing concluded an hour later. As security escorted Webb back to his quarters, Torv approached me nervously. What will happen to him? He asked. The Council will review my report, I said. They will debate and argue and eventually decide that humans are too useful to eliminate and too dangerous to ignore. Webb will probably be released as a goodwill gesture. And then, in about 5 cycles, we will start seeing human soldiers integrated into coalition forces. You sound certain. I am, I replied, watching Webb's retreating form on the security monitor. Because I finally understand what makes humans dangerous. It is not their bodies or their weapons or their technology. It is their absolute refusal to accept that they have lost. That kind of determination is rare in the galaxy. Useful. Terrifying. But rare. Torv was quiet for a moment. Do you think we made a mistake bringing them into space? I considered the question carefully. I think humanity was always going to reach the stars eventually. They are built for it. Explorers and fighters and survivors all wrapped into one stubborn package. We did not bring them into space, Torv. We just happened to be here when they arrived. And now? Now, I said, closing my data pad and heading toward my office, we learn to live with the consequences of meeting a species that simply will not quit. For better or worse, humans are part of the galactic community now. The universe will never be quite the same. Behind me, on the monitor, Private Marcus Webb was doing push-ups again in his quarters. Not because anyone asked. Just because that was what humans did. They kept going. Always. No matter what. And that, more than anything else in my report, was the detail that would keep the Council awake at night.